Welcome to 3 p.m., where you're not going to get any fancy pyrotechnics. You're not going to get any notes, maybe sometimes. You're not going to get any fancy editing. You're just going to get me talking, a regular person in my spare room, office room, if you will, about my day most of the time, but sometimes topics. Topics like drones in the sky, or topics like, Tesla Cybertrucks being exploded, or topics like mental health, um, topics like how it's sometimes 3 p.m. and you got 2 hours left and you're trying to get home, or you can't wait to get home. So that's why I started this podcast. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want to waste my time. Oftentimes, I don't want to record because I feel like I don't got much to say about a lot of things, other than trying to encourage people to be positive and think outside the box, and try to be the best they can each day. But sometimes stuff randomly falls into my ears, I guess, while I'm listening. It just randomly pops up, whether that's the app I'm using to listen to podcast, promoting it to me or not. I happen to listen to different sides of different people on different topics because I try to keep an open mind. So I don't necessarily always agree with one side or the other, but I like to listen to them both. It just makes sense to me. And sometimes, even after listening to both sides, I still can't discern which one's right or wrong or whatever, depending on what I'm trying to figure out. So I had to work today. Today's Saturday. I had to work today, so I'm listening to stuff about this Tesla truck blowing up in front of Trump Tower, and how what I heard, the news wasn't really covering it fully. Supposedly on one podcast, we'll call this podcast a little like a conspiracy podcast, a little less mainstream podcast, if you will. On that podcast, they were discussing how the driver had a bullet hole in his head, which was supposedly self-inflicted. We don't know. I don't know if they proved it at the time. I haven't looked it up. But at the time of them recording it, I don't think they have known. I figured that out. They just assumed it was self-inflicted. Anyways, perhaps it was. They were just debating whether or not somebody could, whether or not things like whether or not the Cybertruck could have driven there with like, could he have been killed or something prior and driven there by the Cybertruck itself. These were all just theories people were coming up with on that podcast, right? And also how this guy was military and had information about the government and these technologies and these drones we're seeing, and they were talking about it. They were talking about how the guy had information. They were talking about how, he said the FBI was on his tail, but he had a car ready to blow. He was talk. They were talking about these things. So that's on one podcast where they're talking about it like that, and how they don't know what's going on yet, and was he trying to expose stuff? What's going on, And on the other podcast that I listen to, that happens to be more mainstream but is still news, current event type podcast, they we're talking about the same thing. I take it these podcasts came out around the same time. Perhaps the more mainstream podcasts came out a little earlier and had less information, but in the more mainstream podcast, they seemed like they were trying to get to the bottom of what was going on, but they didn't mention nothing about a gunshot. They didn't mention anything about him having information to give. Nothing. Just they acted like this was possibly connected to the New Orleans New Year's attack. They acted like, just totally different, totally different. Perhaps they had less information, but they acted totally different. And my point is, based on what you're listening to, if you're, only listening to one side of things, you're getting fed the narrative that they want to give you. They want you thinking, oh, this guy needs help. This guy needs help, and ironically, after listening to those podcasts, I switch over to Joe Rogan to listen to his latest podcast, and his latest podcast is about. They have a guy on there talking. I'm sorry, I'm not good with names. I should be professional and mention these names, but I don't want to mention names. But they had a guy on there talking, and it was about Marines and military service members, mental health. How ironic is all that? Joe Rogan's one of the biggest podcasts in the world. These other ones are talking about, the conspiracy podcast are talking about this. The other mainstream media podcasts are talking about this. And Joe Rogan's has mental health, which is a big issue. And I'm all for, because they were talking about using Ibogaine, and, I'm all for people, if, trying to use that stuff, natural remedies, plants. It's a shame that they are against the law and all that, but luckily, if you have the opportunity, you can go somewhere else and do that. It's a shame that you have to, but perhaps that will change one day. I won't get into all that, but when I sit here and I listen, going back and I listen to all this, I think, even though the two podcasts that I was talking about was different, all this information is still like instilling fear into people. And whether everything is connected or not, it seems like stuff is hyping, it's getting tenser, stuff is hyping up. And perhaps whoever's behind it wants us to be hyped up, high strung and paranoid and ready for attack at any moment, like 1984. They were always at war with somebody, always at war with one side or another. We have Russia, we have China. I mean, no Russian has ever done anything against me. Neither has no Chinese person. I was going to say Chinaman. It's not a time to be funny, but no, or Korean for that matter, or Mexican. Like, I have nothing against whatever ethnicity you are or race you are. We're all humans. We're all part of that race, and we should get together, and we should, care about each other. But you start talking like that, and people get religious on you, and they don't want that, and people should have the right to have their own individuality at the same time. They should be able to keep their culture. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying let's all melt together in one pot, but when I hear, I'm also not saying let's not pay attention to China buying all the farmland, or if they are flying drones like that, you know, hyper advanced super technology, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's like whether it's a weather balloon or it's an advanced drone with anti gravity propulsion systems. You know, some kind of technology I don't know. I'm not aware of. You know, I'm not an expert at that by any means. But whether it's whatever, we should be watching out. But when I hear people talking about like China is our sworn enemy, perhaps the government there is. I don't hear anybody talking like China is our sworn enemy. So, but I do hear people talking about how we got to watch out for China, which is true. And I just think it gets a little much. You know, it gets a little much. Um, you know, we shouldn't isolate ourselves. You know, we shouldn't, because when people start getting paranoid, and that's when they take away our rights. You know, we give up rights for our safety, and you know, like whoever said, you know, we don't deserve either if we're going to give up, you know, our freedom for safety or whatever the quote is. All right, I'm not the best, but at the same at the same time, I'm right, and I just don't like it. So I feel the need to say something. I felt the need to say something because people are probably all. I see it. I see it. They're high strung. They're tense. You know, part of me thinks 2025. You know, I'm optimistic. I think, you know, I have motivation. I hope it's going to be a great year. But then there's this fear of, well, all this crap has been bubbling up. What's coming? What's coming? And it's like we can't live like that. You got to keep grinding. You got to keep doing what you got to do. You got to stay motivated. It's all the more reason to make sure you got doing yours handled and figured out, because who knows what's going to happen. I'm not one to be like run for the hills, you know, because you shouldn't live your life like that. But at the same time, you know, things are getting crazy and people should, you know, prepare for the worst, and prepare to be your best. You know, so, no matter what it is, you know, stop. You know, there might come a day where you might have to go a little longer without food, or go a little longer without something. You know, your technology, and if that, you know, you got to ask yourself, like, if that ever happened, would I be able to cope? Would I be able to handle myself, or would I be relying on somebody else? Or because who knows how people would act if things started really breaking down. I mean, people get crazy over a flu or whatever you want to call it. They get crazy over it. And Black Friday and stuff like that, people get crazy, and people have been killed. And it's a shame. It's a shame. We shouldn't, you know, people, us as a society, really needs to. We really need to evaluate like our priorities and what we think is valuable. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with having nice things, but I mean, it gets to a point where it's too far, and or you're going after these things, but perhaps they're filling up a hole that can't be filled. That's my theory. And maybe perhaps that's why you get weird, you know, celebrities doing weird things, or perhaps, and also, I think they get scared that they're not enough with it. I think celebrities, you know, this is weird going from what we were talking about to this, but this is. I think celebrities, they forget, you know, especially if they aren't responsible 100% for getting themselves to the point of where they're at and their success, whatever they want to call it. You know, their what makes them happy. and somebody could take it all away, or it tells them, I could take it all away, or and if you're small enough, even if you did it all yourself, somebody could come along and go, I'll take it all away. It could end now, or you could keep getting famous. Perhaps that's how it works. Perhaps that's what happens. Just another one of my theories that I think, famous people, they get imposter syndrome, and they start thinking, who am I? And people get come, they get in their ear and tell them like, oh, it could all go away tomorrow. We can make it all go away. So do this symbol or whatever it is, because if not, then why does it happen? Why do you do it? Why, just so people could go, oh, they did, more publicity, more people talking about you. It's like, that's a pretty douchey thing to do. I don't know, but that's what this world is about. People clout chasing clout, chasing fame. It's not, it's not like it used to be, I guess, and I try not to be one that's like, I was born in the wrong generation, even though I like different generations. And I wish I could have experienced different generations, because I would have liked to meet people like, Dean Martin or Jesse James, just throughout life, because I think people are pretty interesting. And I think, yeah, sometimes it's a shame if their story isn't written down, like Jesse James or some of these famous people, because people are interesting and people are unique and everybody's different. And I think, you know, people forget that, and they don't, like Jordan Peterson said, they don't shoot high enough. They don't aim high enough, especially when they're younger. So starting off with, or speaking of aiming higher, um, this this new year didn't start off too well. You know, didn't really do much at all. New Year's, it was really uneventful, and as I had nothing to do really, and didn't really do anything, and worked up until New Year's Eve, and had nothing to do. Could thought of all these people doing all these things all around the world, celebrating it. Um, Nothing was really happening, and but 12 o'clock came around, and we walked outside because everybody was shooting off their fireworks, and it was just me and my fiance Brittany, and it was, it didn't matter. I think people get, I walked to the store and I could hear people going, it's New Year, just as I'm walking by, it's the new year. We're going to do great. It's like, how long are you going to keep that motivation? It's what, the third or something. And it's like, do you still have the motivation? Do you still have the motivation to keep going? It's the fourth, because I came up with this a couple days ago. It doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. And I didn't come up with it, but I thought of it because I'm sure it can't, somebody said it. But anyways, yeah, it matters how you finish. The start wasn't that great, but it was peaceful. And I mean, when I was younger, maybe I would want to party, and might party for some New Year's. Sometimes I think people they suffer from trying to make certain days certain days mean, like, put more meaning in special days. We put more meaning in special days like New Year's, instead of putting meaning in every day. And if you could truly put meaning in every second, it's like that would be awesome. Yeah, but then you start sounding like you're a tree hugging hippie on drugs. If you're like, we're one with the planet, come and hug this tree. It's, I was talking to this coworker, or not a coworker, a customer of mine, and I was talking to her. She's an older lady, and we talk all the time. And I was telling her about these new things like cold plunging and red light therapy. And she had no idea. And I said, they have this new thing called grounding. I tried it, where you go outside barefoot and you let your feet touch the earth, and you connect with the soil and the ground. And I said, back in our day, we just called it going outside. And I said, if you get, I was like, if you get up real early, it helps even more. You got to come up right as the sun's peaking, and they call it sun peaking, and it charges you. Now I believe in this, but it's like that's what people used to do anyways. People used to, before technology and all this stuff, they used to like sleep outside and get up when the sun came up. Go to bed when the sun came down. Now that could get kind of boring, but I think people got to get back to that. People crave that, and that's why you're starting to see people like they want to watch stuff where people are actually doing stuff like building stuff or farming or growing vegetables or living uh, off off themselves, because I think a lot of people are tired of it now. Probably more than half aren't, and they're just they're okay with technology, and they have to you have to be okay with technology because it's the world we live in. And if you have kids, it could be a struggle to have to separate them from technology, because that's what they're going to have to be able to use when they get older. If nothing crazy happens and technology just keeps getting crazier and crazier, it'd be good for them to know it. But if at the same time, who knows if they'll be able to tell what's right or wrong in the future. Right now, or what's real and fake. Right now, we're having a hard time doing that. So, it's if we and they're when they're adults, if we have something like these attacks that have happened, these horrible events that have happened in the past couple of days of this new year. If we had that, if we have that happening, who knows if they'll be able to tell what, right now it's up, like it's up for debate. There's theories everywhere, um, things being changed, information. Like, I won't get it when I encourage everybody to go and do all their research. But when our kids get older, will they be able to do their own research? I mean, you used to be able to go onto YouTube and look up something and see like crazy videos about it. Now, I looked up something, you know, conspiracy, and I didn't see nothing on it. And I'm like, 10 years ago, if you looked up this, there'd be 20,000, you know, people like, this is why this person is evil. And now you don't see that. And it's like, no offense to YouTube, because it's the platform that I use. Um, and perhaps you don't need to, perhaps you don't need to see all that stuff, because 90% of it's probably just bull crap. But it should be allowed on there, and they're coming back around, and they're starting to allow more stuff in it on there. But also they have kids on there, and I feel like since I was born before all of the Facebook and stuff, like, and people were born before that and didn't grow up completely with technology, they kind of still know how to tell bullcrap from other stuff, kind of. But it's getting hard, and it's like you never know. Is the conspiracy type stuff? But and you just try to live your life. But yeah, it's getting harder, and who knows if our kids will be able to do it. That's all I got. That's all I'm saying. And it scares me. It scares me, but Do you hold them back for it, and then they don't know technology at all? You got to have a balance. I believe everything, you have to have a balance. That's my shirt. That's what my shirt says. It says balance. Ironically. But and everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. I got a crazy story to end off with because I think I'm going to end it. But yeah, I mean, before I tell this story, just try to do your best. Try not to live in fear. Try to live in hope and stay positive. And I don't know. Just don't let stuff get to you. Don't let it get to you. Try to keep an open mind. Do your research. I think this year is going to get crazy, and all I could say is I hope the right people are on the side of humanity and good. It's getting harder to tell who's good and who's evil in this world. But let me tell you this story. I was going to work like a day ago. Sometime losing my memory. But anyways, I was going to work, and I saw this Bible. It's my girl's uncle's Bible. Passed away quite a while ago before I even met her. And we had gave it to her brother, and then he gave it back for some reason, and I was like, I wonder if he ever looked at it. I was on my way into work, but I just happened to pick it up. Something drew me to it, and I was like, I wonder if he even went through it. And I was like, I wonder if her uncle left any money in there. And I'm sitting there flipping through there, looking for money. And I find this $100 bill, right? And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, there's $100 bill. I'm like, that's meant to be. Did I just manifest that? Like, what the heck? How come you never seen it? Like, because I'm like, that's something I would do. Leave behind like a hundo in a book somewhere. Hopefully whoever finds it gets it. I go to show my son, and I realize that it's for motion picture use only. And it says copy on it, and it's from 2013, and he died way before that. So her brother must have put it in. Whether you put it in as a joke, I don't know, or a bookmark, I don't know. But I thought it was pretty crazy that the whole series of events. But perhaps I shouldn't be looking in the Bible for money. I should be looking in the Bible for wisdom, because it has some good stories in there, whether you believe in them or not. But I like to flip through the Bible sometimes and just randomly read a verse. So that's how I'm going to end it off. And look, I mean, I'm just going to randomly pick a verse. And hopefully I could, I don't know the Bible like that either. Hopefully I could read this. All right. This is Psalms. See, I don't even know it like that. It's Psalms 107, chapter 4, verse. Hold on. I don't even know it like that. But this is the old Bible too. Book 5, Psalms 107.4-32, verse 4. They wandered in the wilderness in a desert in a desert way. They found no city or habitation. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted in them. Then they cried unto Jehovah in their trouble, and he delivered them out of their distresses. He led them also by a straight way that they might go to a city of habitation. Oh, that men would praise Jehovah for his loving kindness and for his wonderful works to the children of men. I'm going to stop right there. That's pretty crazy. That's kind of like dead on with what I was talking about earlier with, like things going down, and there might come a day where you're hungry and thirsty, and or just metaphorically, you could be hungry and thirsty for yeah, I don't know. That got to me. I love to do that. Hopefully it helped you. You could, like they say in the Bible, it's open for interpretations. Um, yeah. With that being said, you guys have a great whatever, and stay safe. And as always, take care of yourself.